All right, so hello guys. It's so good to be back on this podcast. My name is still Michael Ukwuma, and I'm a human rights educator based in Nigeria. And I run the Picky Podcasts, the Service Africa YouTube channel, and an organization called Civics that focuses on helping young persons become the best versions of themselves. And that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. This is a little bit late now in Nigeria, but it's okay. We are talking about something important for us. This is a continuation of our series on the life and legacy of our hero, those who are before us. Like it's often said that we are standing on the shoulder of giants. That is what we can see far ahead of us. So one of those giants is whom we are talking about today, the person of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, the first president of Nigeria. So thanks to you, those who do not know him are going to be able to know him, where he grew up, who is he, what did he do, did he make any mistake? We basically want to know everything we can about this individual in the history of Nigeria. So could you start with a little description, if you like, brief description of this personality? Who is he?
Well, I guess preparing for this podcast, I could see in the man Nnamdi Azikiwe, the typical Nigerian, and by the time we're done with our conversations today, you see just how similar he is to all of us, kind of, because the ups were there, the downs were there. People sometimes make the mistake of summarizing the whole life of a person into a title or an accomplishment, and we forget that they had all of these other experiences that were super fantastic. So like you rightly said, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe became the first president we had in Nigeria, and would eventually, he was the beginning and the end of an order, because he would become the first indigenous governor general Nigeria had, and that would eventually transition to becoming a ceremonial president. And all that would end in 1966 when something similar to the Nigeria we have now would begin. But I guess we're going to talk about all of that later. But he was someone who was dedicated to the service of his people. He was a great Nigerian nationalist, a statesman, a leader of the African people, because beyond Nigeria, he's loved and respected. Like a very popular title for Zik is the Zik of Africa, and he has a movement after him, the Zikist movement. So it's kind of he's a lot of things to a lot of people. But he was a man of vision, courage. His legacy is really tall. And back home, he's like the comprehensive Nigerian, because as we're going to see later, he pretty much lived everywhere. He pretty much spoke every language, and he pretty much tried just about everything every other Nigerian has tried to make, like to make it in their career, to succeed and all that. So um, he's he's uh, he's a comprehensive Nigerian and a very accomplished one at that, and someone I can proudly call my brother, because thank goodness he comes from this part where I'm from, and he's left a lot of legacy for us.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that, Michael. And that is where I want to start the name. You're going to help us understand what that even mean, Nandi. Because you are from that part of Nigeria, let's start with the name. What does Nandi mean? If you can say anything about that, anything you can say about that.
Well, I'm happy you asked Nnamdi and not Azikiwe, because yes, Nnamdi is a very common name in Igbo land, and it literally means that my father lives, or my father is alive. Now, there's a bit of a background to the name Nnamdi. It's usually given to a child whose grandfather is late. And because our people, culturally, we believe in reincarnation. So when a child is born, the parents look out to see if it's one of their loved parents or one of their loved relatives who's reincarnated. And if I had a son and I felt, oh, that's my late father returned to me, I would name him Nnamdi, meaning my father is alive. So, some persons might erroneously believe Nnamdi does not refer to the father of the child or to the father of the person whose name the Nnamdi refers to the grandfather of a parent. I mean, it refers to the grandfather of the child or a father of a parent.
That is very important. How could we have ever known that? Thank you so much for that, Michael. Thank you. All right. Now, the person of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. We're going to start from the beginning. What do we remember of him growing up? Tell us something about him, where he was born, where he grew up. We're going to spend some time there because it's really important for us.
Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe's father lived in current Niger State, in modern day Niger State, in a town called Zungeru. Now, back in the days, we didn't have states as we have now. So they just lived in northern Nigeria in a place called Zungeru. And this bit of information is important because Zig's father, Nnamdi Azikiwe, eventually people called him Zik. So he, up until now, is popularly known as Zik, the great Zik of Africa. So Zig's father worked for the colonial authorities. And what that implied was that he moved a lot. So, um, so Zik was born and raised in the north, and that meant that he learned how to speak the Hausa language before he learned how to speak his native Igbo language. And after some time, over the years, the father would become worried that his son could not speak the native dialect and could not relate to the culture of the Igbo people, which is the tribe where he comes from. So you see, Zigs from Onitsha in modern day Anambra State in southeast Nigeria, and we are predominantly Igbo people in that part. In fact, we're all Igbo people, not just predominant. Any non-Igbo person who lives in southeast Nigeria, migrated at some point. So the father sent him to Onitsha to go and stay with some family members. And he finishes his primary school there and begins his secondary school. Now, within that period, he learned a bit of the he learned the Igbo language and learned about the Igbo culture, the Igbo way of life. And eventually, he would move to Lagos, where he completed his secondary school education. And there also, he mastered the Yoruba language. So Zeke was one of those very exciting figures we had in the early days of Nigeria who could speak all the major languages. But then all that possible because of the kind of work Zeke's father did. So he moved a lot, and he had people, here and there, and it was very easy for him to make those calls and to have Zeke experience all the different nationalities, all the different cultures and peoples that make up this federation called Nigeria. So that as he grew, he was a natural leader. It was easy for him to blend in, to relate with Nigerians, irrespective of where they were coming out of, because he kind of understood who they were. He understood where they were coming from. He understood their culture. He could speak their language, and that's kind of made him very acceptable eventually when he would become a politician.
Thank you so much for that. In this period now that is moving around, of course, because his father was moving around, that is obvious. You're a child. As your father is moving, you are you are moving along with him. There is an adage in fact in my place that say, "Eduration meaning that where the snake is going is where the share will follow you to go, wherever you want to crawl to.